What personality type will make the best partner for you as an INFJ? How do you push past your perfectionism and get yourself out there to meet the right kind of people to date? And how can you cultivate a healthy, vibrant relationship with your significant other as an INFJ? Today's show will answer all these questions and more. Today, I have the privilege of introducing you to Megan Malone. Megan is the creator of INFJblog.com, and she's also the recent author of the book INFJs in Love. Megan is a personal development blogger as well as a Myers-Briggs enthusiast. Make sure that you stick around to the end of the video because I've got a free gift just for you. Now, let's get to the answers to those questions about INFJs in love. Well, Megan, thanks so much for joining us today. It's awesome having you on the show and getting to talk to you and hearing your insights. Really excited for this conversation. Megan, when did you learn that you were an INFJ and how has that knowledge impacted your life?
So I found out that I was an INFJ during my senior year of college. I took the MBTI test in a psychology class I was taking. I was studying psychology and marketing in school. And I had taken the test, I think, once before when I was maybe a freshman or a sophomore, and I got a completely different result. I think I got like an extrovert result, and I was like, oh, this doesn't really sound like me, so whatever, this test is probably dumb. Didn't really look into it anymore. And then I took it in my senior year, and I was like, whoa. When I got the INFJ result, I was like, this really defines me. Like, this is really explains who I am better than I feel like I could explain who I am. And so that's when I really started to kind of embrace, who I truly was. Because I feel like up until that point, I had kind of this idea of who I thought I should be, based on my friends, my, people around me, my family, expectations. I was like, I need to be a certain type of person. And then I took this and I was like, I don't need to be the extrovert, or I don't need to be this type of person. I can just embrace my introversion. I can embrace who I am. And so it's had a really tremendous effect or impact on my life since then.
And you started, was it a Twitter feed in 2011? When you were in college or post-college?
Yes, that was shortly after I took the test and got the INFJ result. So yeah, the Twitter account started in 2011. I had just found out I was an INFJ, and I was looking online for more resources about being an INFJ. And there was stuff, there was online forums. I think there was Personality Cafe back then, and Reddit had some stuff, and there was a few websites that were pretty good. But there wasn't a ton, and there was definitely not a lot on Twitter. And so I joined a few Facebook groups. I was talking to people, and I was like, I really like this personality type stuff. I want to kind of get into it a little bit more. And so I decided to just start an anonymous Twitter account. And I just kind of started tweeting my thoughts out, whatever I thought that day that was kind of related to being an INFJ. And then I would hashtag, INFJ. And I started getting a lot of followers really quickly. And I was like, wow, after 6 months, I had 500 followers. I was like, oh my gosh, am I Twitter famous? I was like, wow, people really care about what I'm talking about here. That's weird. So I just got into it more as I started interacting with people more on Twitter, and it was a lot of fun. But I realized after a while, I was like, I want to talk more than, I can put in the 140 character limit on Twitter. I want to expand on some of these ideas. I had started reading more books on personality type and learning a lot more. And so I wanted to write more articles that would help people. And so initially I started a Tumblr account because I didn't really at that time understand, how I was going to make a blog and stuff, but I was like, hey, I'll start, a Tumblr blog. And so I did that. I started engaging with people on Tumblr. That's really when I started getting a lot of questions from people that were reading some of the stuff I was writing. And after about 3 years, in 2014, I was like, you know what, I'm ready to make this a full blog. And so that's kind of how the INFJ blog was born. My original Twitter account was just, I'm INFJ. It wasn't creative or anything. So I was like, well, I guess my blog's just going to be, INFJ blog. So that's what it is. It's a blog for people who are INFJs that has resources for them and whatnot. And so that's kind of how it started. And since then, it's evolved slowly. It was never, a goal to make it something that was, going to be a business or anything like that. It was just something I was doing for fun because I was so interested in the topic. And so it just kind of slowly evolved, into, I have a Facebook page and stuff like that, so I kind of get it to interact with people on lots of different channels on social media. And Twitter is still my favorite, though, because that's where it all started out. So that's kind of how the story goes.
So how many years altogether? So if you started in 2011,
that would be, what year is it? 2017. 6 years, almost 7 years. Yeah.
Wow. That's a long run. And so the blog, was that in 2015 or 2014?
2014.
2014. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was actually unemployed at the time. I just lost a job and I was like, I need to do something. And that's kind of what I think motivated it a little bit more, was like really needing to put my energy into something a little bit more heavily. So
yeah,
that's when I started the blog. Mm-hmm.
And just out of curiosity, what are you doing now outside from working on that blog?
Full time, I work in marketing, and I also do freelance writing.
Okay.
I'm very busy doing stuff all the time.
Oh my word, I can only imagine. Yeah, with those two things.
Yeah, I like it though.
That sounds like a great way to use your strengths, and that's part of why I was asking, because I think a lot of INFJs are searching for a meaningful employment. I actually wrote a post about that today, and just finding a strength where you can create and envision the future, make connections, theorize to some extent. It's really important. And do you feel like you get to do that?
I do. I originally majored in marketing because it seemed like a practical choice. I originally wanted to be a writer or be a journalist, and at the time, like I mentioned, I was trying to live up to a lot of other expectations when I was in college that weren't necessarily true to myself. And so I was like, well, marketing's more practical. That's how I'm going to make money. I guess that's what I'll do. But there's a lot of, research and psychology behind it. So that was another thing that attracted me to it. And it's something that I really like. I think a lot of the stuff that I've learned and strengths that I have in business and in marketing and that I can transfer into my blog and my writing has been from that background. I think eventually I want to go more into the direction of writing and maybe coaching and doing more with that. I think that's more in line with my ultimate goals. But right now, number one, to pay the bills and to continue learning and getting all the skills that I want to have, for my own business someday, I think it's important. So, yeah.
That's great. And sorry, I cut you off. Were you going to add something else there?
No, I don't remember. It's okay.
Just again, out of curiosity. So what is your ultimate goal? Again, I think the people listening would probably be interested or could benefit from that.
Yeah. So, I think ultimately, my mission is just to help as many people as I can using psychology and, personality models, whether that's MBTI or, the Enneagram or any of the other models that are out there that can help people. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can, ultimately grow as people and understand ourselves better, understand other people better. And so, when I'm thinking about my ultimate vision, it's in line with that goal. And I think ultimately, I would like to expand a little bit more outside of just talking about INFJ stuff so I can help even more people. But, as far as exactly the path to how to get there, I don't have all the details ironed out, but I know that's what I want to do. I know in the next few months, I want to get certified in MBTI and be able to offer that as something to, readers or anyone that's interested. And just kind of go from there, continue to keep writing about stuff, publishing more books, hopefully in the future. So we'll see.
And that's a perfect segue into your book. So let's talk a little bit about INFJs and love. And just to clarify, is this your first book or have you written other ones?
This is my first, my first ebook and first book in general.
It was a great first one.
Thank you.
So the INFJ and love, what inspired that one? Why did you decide to go with that topic first?
So my readers inspired it. I get a lot of questions and feedback on articles on my blog, and most of those have to do with INFJ relationships. So when I was thinking about, what to write a book about, it was kind of a no-brainer. I was like, I know the people who read my blog and I know what they're most interested in. And typically it's relationship type stuff, and I get a lot of questions like, so I'm, interested in an ISTP, what should I do? Or, like I'm dating an ENFP, what can we do to make our relationship stronger? And so I knew, back when I was first thinking of this book, which was actually 2 years ago, that I initially decided I was going to write it. And it took me like 2 years to actually write it. But when I first thought about it, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do something about INFJ relationships. And because I get so many questions specific to different personality types, I wanted to do something that would really encompass all the personality types, and it kind of just highlight the main struggles and, joys that INFJs experience in relationships with each personality type. Because I got a lot of questions about that. And I wanted to give, people who were interested in potentially, buying the book, what they wanted to hear. So.
Very smart. Definitely need to consider who is reading and what they're interested in.
Yeah, so that's been a big motivator in my blog in general, the stuff that I write about. I mean, some of it's stuff that I'm personally experiencing or going through that I'm like, hey, this might be interesting, to share with people. I just wrote one, like we were talking about, on perfectionism, which is something that I've kind of been struggling with lately. And I wrote that from more of a personal perspective, but then other times it's really listening to what people are asking me and trying to address that.
I bet people appreciate that I don't know, that honesty and bringing out like what you personally wrestle with too. Because when you're open, that encourages them to do likewise.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard to do that sometimes, but it feels good when people are like, hey, this really resonated or this really helped me, then it makes it worth it.
What advice do you have for single INFJs? Is there any like from your book or that you can think of maybe related to the research that you've done?
So I would say there's probably two things that I would say mostly would be good advice for single INFJs. One, I would just really encourage them to step outside of their comfort zone. I think that as introverts and as INFJs, sometimes that's something that's even harder for us to do. We get really comfortable with where we are. And we have maybe when we're shy, we have social anxiety. And it's just kind of hard to do. But I think that there's a huge benefit to doing that. Like you feel so much better after you've done something that you just were convinced you couldn't do. Like you went to this event by yourself and it turned out to be great. I can give you advice to go to things like events, special interest groups that are related to stuff that you're passionate about, because that's what's easy for you to talk about already, so that's just going to be a less stressful environment, and you'll probably meet some cool people along the way. A more MBTI related piece of advice I would give is just to not feel like you have to let MBTI decide who you're in a relationship with. And I say this because so many people that I see in Myers-Briggs communities or personality communities, online and offline, say stuff like, well, I can never date this personality type, or I would never be good in a relationship with this personality type. Like they're so sure that because of the person's personality type, it's a bad fit. And whenever I say that, I'm like, don't think that way, because I feel like those types of beliefs are very limiting. You're holding yourself back, and you're also, holding yourself back from a relationship that could be very potentially rewarding and fulfilling just because the person, is not, the best fit personality type for you. And, in my opinion, I think there's so many qualities that are more important than personality type when you're looking for someone. I mean, you could be with someone who is the best personality type for you on paper. Maybe they're the, for INFJs, they say like ENFP or ENTP or something. And, they could not be right for you in a lot of ways. Like maybe it's really full of passion and infatuation at first, but then down the road, if they're not willing to compromise with you, if they're not willing to respect and understand, your values and your beliefs and your goals, your dreams, then they're not going to be a good fit, or you're going to have a lot of tough conversations to make it work out. And they're going to have to kind of sacrifice, and so are you. So just keep that in mind, that when you're looking for someone, you just need to be kind of open-minded, and not decide that just because you've had a bad experience with a certain personality type, or, you what you've read has told you it's not going to be as good of a fit as someone else doesn't necessarily mean that it's not the best fit for you. Because as much as I like personality type, the theories and stuff, I don't like the idea of putting us, in such a small box that we assume that everyone in that box is exactly the same, and therefore couldn't be good for us. So just be kind of careful when you're looking for someone that you don't do that, and just know that, there's a lot of great opportunities to learn and grow from all personality types, and you don't want to miss out on that just because someone's maybe not the perfect fit in your opinion.
I think that's some of the best advice that you gave in your book. And I'm really glad that you ended with that, because I think it's insightful. And you just touched on this, but you said there are more important things, characteristics or qualities. What do you think are some of those important, maybe more important things than type, pairing, and compatibility?
I think that, and I mentioned this in the book, you don't have to be with someone who fully understands you. And, I mentioned that for INFJs, that's not an easy thing to find because, we're kind of complicated. A lot of people are complicated, and expecting to find someone that's going to completely understand you is a little bit unrealistic. But finding someone who really wants to understand you and really wants to take the time to understand you, that's really important, especially for INFJs. And it means a lot, when someone that you're with is like, I don't understand, why you feel this way, but you know what, I want to learn. Like, I want you to tell me, and we can talk through it, and I can explain my perspective, and then we get to grow together. So I think that's something that's really important to look for.
That's definitely been my experience too. I'm married to an ISTJ, and I really appreciated being married to my wife because she helps me think in ways that are foreign to me that I need in order to live a more balanced life. So I really, number one, she helps me just like survive in the real world because she's great at taking care of the chores and day-to-day responsibilities that just need to get done. And I help her think long-term and get out of the box a little bit. So it's been a really good relationship. But again, I think you hit the nail on the head. You just want someone who is going to be your friend and wants to get to know you for who you are. And then you challenge each other and help each other to grow. And I think that's so well said.
Yeah.
You've done. And I really like it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna add that growth thing is very important. A lot of the INFJs that I've talked to when I was, planning for the book and stuff like that, that was a common theme that kept coming up. Someone who wants to grow with you, because growth is so important for INFJs. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, well, certain personality types, they don't like growth as much as we, but that's not really what I'm talking about. It's someone who wants to grow in their relationship with you and is going to support your goals and your dreams, and is going to be there for you every step along the way, understands that. And there's not a best fit personality type that will do that. Like you said, you're in a relationship with an ISTJ, and, you balance each other out. You can grow a lot with each other. And so, yeah.
I think you gave really good advice.
Where I was going with that, sorry.
Oh, no, it was good. That was good. It's a good stopping point. I think you had good advice too when you suggested pushing yourself out. Just as an INFJ guy, I think I've read some comments from some other guys, just how challenging it can be to push yourself out and make those initial connections. And not that my story is the be all end all, but just to share from experience, I know that there was a point where I just said, well, I'm just going to try this, and I'm just going to start calling the girls that I know that I really respect and that I'd like to get to know more, and find out if there's a possibility of getting to know them more, or if not. And if they say no, I'm going to try not to take that personally and just move on to the next opportunity. And Jeff Goins, are you familiar with him?
Who?
Jeff Goins. Have you heard of him before?
I don't think so.
He's kind of like a writing blogger coach, but he has this great quote, and he might have gotten it from someone else, but he says, you can't steer a parked car. I'm sure someone else has said that before. Like, you have to get the wheels rolling before you can go anywhere and make any adjustments. And I think that's true of single INFJ relationships or singles looking for a relationship. Like, you just have to get out there, like you said, and start taking chances and making mistakes. I mean, obviously you want to honor your values and find someone who shares those. And like you said, wants to get to know you, but you have to get out there and get in the game before anything happens too. So just wanted to say, I think that's really good advice that you shared. So how was it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah. How has what you've learned or written in this book impacted your own life, Megan?
I think that when I was younger, I was very idealistic when it came to my idea about relationships and how they should be. And it wasn't just that I had, high expectations. I don't think there's anything wrong with having high expectations. But I think there's a difference between expecting, respect and love and care and the normal things that you should have in a relationship. And then also setting the bar so high that almost anyone who, isn't at this certain level is just automatically, not considered. Another struggle that I had was that I often placed people that I was interested in on pedestals. And I was like, well, this is the perfect idealistic person for me. No one else can meet this. And it was not healthy and it wasn't realistic. I was very weird when I was younger about relationships. And I was very shy about them too. So I would like someone and then be really awkward and not ever say anything, and didn't really turn out too well for me. And then when I learned about personality type and learned about myself better and learned about others better, it just kind of made me understand how relationships work in a much different way. I realized that I was not being very realistic before with my expectations and my beliefs in how things, should be. And I learned it just because that, INFJs are people who tend to have, high expectations and stuff, doesn't mean that we need to just sabotage a relationship or, not try in a relationship, just because it's not, as perfect as, our imaginations tell us it could be. I think one of the weird kind of paradoxical traits also about INFJs is that while we may kind of have high expectations going in, when we really fall for someone and we're really invested in the relationship, I think that we can also be very sacrificial, almost to a fault. So if it's not a healthy relationship, it can very easily turn into a one-sided type of thing. And I think I experienced some of that in the past as well. So it's really kind of helped me to learn, who I am, what are some of my, faults and weaknesses, what are my innate qualities that, I just tend to go towards in relationships, and how can I make sure I find, the right person who isn't going to, have that kind of relationship. And, I think I'm in a relationship now and I've been in for about 3 years. And I think that this is the first one that's really kind of helped me to have a realistic relationship. And, between that and between learning about the Myers-Briggs and everything and really researching it and learning about myself and learning about him and learning about relationships in general, I think it's been very deeply impactful for my own life.
What personality type is your boyfriend?
An ENTJ, I believe, although he thinks he's more of an introvert. So.
And I think what you said about perfectionism was good as well. Just about your standards, about being realistic, and at least from my perspective, I think that's what I experienced as well. Going through high school, I never dated anyone. It wasn't until my junior year of college that I even dated anyone, because I had, I think, really high standards. And like you said, it was probably unrealistic to some extent. But you mentioned too that you can be overly sacrificial, maybe in a bad way. Sacrificialness, I guess, isn't, if that's a word, sacrificialness isn't bad necessarily. If it's out of right motive and it's not going to hurt you, but it can be bad. You want balance in a relationship. So how do you, I guess I see kind of a challenge there where you want to be realistic, but you also probably want a good filtering system, since it's going to be hard once you're in a relationship and you're going to be tempted to maybe give too much. You want to make sure you get the right person. So is there a way that you struck a balance, if this question even makes sense, that you struck a balance between not being perfectionistic with your standards, but also being careful enough to find the right person, so that when you're in the relationship, it's going to be someone who for lack of better words, pulls his or her weight as well. That you're like mutually getting to know each other and trying to build each other up.
Yeah. Well, I definitely personally struggle with being very like perfectionistic, and it's in everything, in my relationships, in my job, and everything that I do. And that was definitely something that made relationships hard when I was younger. And when I met the person that I'm with right now, we kind of just got to know each other, as friends initially. Even when we met, I was like, I'm not really looking for a relationship. And, everyone was like, well, people always say that, but everyone's looking for a relationship. But really at the time, I was kind of in a place where I was like, I'm not, I'm tired of it. And I just want to focus on myself. And we actually met at a meetup.com group that was about Myers-Briggs. And so I just went because I was like, hey, I want to talk about this Myers-Briggs stuff. I love it. It's something I really like. And he got roped into going with his brother. He wasn't even into it at the time. But so we met and I was explaining it to him. I was like, yeah, Myers-Briggs, blah, blah, let me help you figure out your personality type. And I was really enthusiastic. And, he said that was something that really attracted him to me, that I was just so passionate about this topic and so excited about it. And, had I gone into that event thinking, oh, I hope that I meet someone tonight, it probably would have been more awkward maybe. But I think the fact that it was a personality type event kind of made any anxieties and stuff that I had kind of fade away, because I was so excited to talk about it. Which, not to say I wasn't anxious going in, I was, because I was by myself, and I sat in my car for a good solid 20 minutes before I had the courage to go in because I was so nervous.
Appreciate that honesty.
So I'm not trying to like make it seem like it was so easy for me. It was not.
Yeah.
And I understand. That's why I understand, other introverts and INFJs that struggle with stuff like that. It's not easy, but I think once you get to that point that you really, like I said, push yourself outside of the comfort zone, it just feels really good afterwards. Like after that night, I didn't know where we were going to go next, if we were going to start dating or whatever, but I just had such a good experience in general that night talking with people, and I was really happy that I went. So that's stuff like that's a big reason that I encourage people to just try something that is a little bit scary, and I think that it'll turn out well.
Smart
if it doesn't,
too.
It's an experience.
It's smart too, like you said, to just go for an interest that you already enjoy, because no matter what, you're going to have a good time and you'll be yourself. And that's what you want the other person to see anyway, who you really are.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was also thinking too, as we were talking about how beneficial it can be to, I don't know, if you have the chance to hang out with people who know you, with friends who you trust, so that as you're getting to know the other person too in that company, they can help you in essence vet that person. And maybe it's not like when you first meet, at least later on, they can kind of help you determine, hey, is this a person that would be better to get to know? I think from my own experience, that helped a lot, just hearing feedback from people who I trusted, who knew me really well. So that might also be helpful too, if you're listening and wondering, how do I really get started in this process and make sure it's a safe person to get to know and someone I want to get to know better. I think that can be really beneficial too. Have you heard back from any other people who have read your book so far? I know I read the section on INFJ and ISTJ relationships, and I think you hit it spot on. That was definitely my experience. Have you heard back from any other types, INFJ, other relationships?
Well, thanks. That's good to hear. When I was writing the book, I took a lot of the feedback that I had gotten from the blog and people I had just talked to. I actually sent a survey out at one point about INFJ relationships. So that's really what I based a lot of what I wrote about, with also, the research that I did. I have the references section at the back of the book if anybody wanted to see that. And a little bit of personal experience. But I haven't gotten a ton of feedback yet from people who've actually bought this book. Just mostly feedback from articles that I've written about relationships and stuff in the past. So I'm hoping that, taking all the research and stuff that I did ahead of time, the people do find it helpful and can relate to it. So.
Great. And we've already talked a bit about the concluding chapter of the book, the best fit type for an INFJ, but can you just kind of, without giving it away, maybe, can you kind of recap that again? Because I think that's just a wonderful takeaway. I mean, we spent a little bit of time talking, but maybe just to hit that again.
Yeah. So basically, I summarized that in a way, there is a best fit type for an INFJ, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with personality type. Like we talked about earlier, there's so many other qualities and characteristics that are really important. And I really write about that a little bit more in the last chapter, just, what you should be looking for in a partner. And like I said, may or may not, play into personality type. I think that personality type is really, really great and that it can help us understand the person we are with or we are interested in, and better communicate with them, better, solve, problems and obstacles in the relationship. But when it comes to finding the best person, I don't think that's what personality type is ideal for. I think it's more for, I'm in this relationship, let's figure out how we can make it even better.
Great clarifying point. I was just thinking about this one, so this is kind of ad lib, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. You talked about meeting your current boyfriend in the group that you went to, and I was thinking about how I met my now wife. I met her kind of a funny way. My dad is an elder or he was an elder at our church, and my wife had been in Papua New Guinea on an internship with Wycliffe, just doing some like translation work and helping. She'd studied German and anthropology at Baylor, so that was just kind of a natural overflow of what she cared about and her interests and gifts. So she was over there for a few years and coming back to tell the church about it. And one of the other elders that my dad knew had listened to her presentation and said to my dad, "Hey, has Bo met this Candra girl?" That's my wife's name. And actually a couple other people said that. So I bring that up just to illustrate, like, it was through like a network of people that I met my wife. I know that not everybody has that, but that was a big help to me. Just other people that I trusted suggesting, and there were other people that I reached out to as well. But I think just hearing from other people and those people looking as well, just from what you've garnered from your blog and conversations with others in the survey, have you found like a main way that INFJs have gotten together with the person they're dating or married to?
I can't think of one main way. I do know some kind of unique stories, like two INFJs that are together that I know met in an INFJ Facebook group that I was a member of. And it's really cool to see, them get together. They have a kid now. They moved across the country to be with each other and stuff. And so that's a really cool story. But a lot of them have just met, kind of like what you said, through mutual connections. A lot of them met in doing things that they're passionate about, like doing whatever is their hobby or interest, if that's an MBTI or a sport or something like that. I think that for INFJs, it's kind of important for us to look at dating as something that is just kind of organic and natural, and not, if it's too forced, it's not going to be comfortable for us. And I don't think we're going to show up as our best selves and really meet the best fit person for us if we're doing stuff that doesn't seem right. Like if your friends are like, "Hey, I'm going to go to the single camp for a weekend, you should come," and it's a party camp, and you're like, "Oh, that doesn't seem like something that I'd be interested in," then you're probably not going to, number one, have fun. You're probably not going to find someone who's a really good fit for you at that type of event. If online dating's not working for you and you're tired of, swiping Tinder every day, then that's probably not the best way. If it is, great. I think there's different ways to meet people, but if you haven't really found what's working for you, that doesn't mean there's something that's wrong with you or that dating's just not for you. I think a lot of people get kind of bummed out and they're just like, "Oh, well, I guess it means I'm going to be alone forever. Oh, well," and they just give up. I think sometimes you just have to be creative, and you definitely, I've said this a million times, but you definitely have to push yourself a little bit outside of the comfort zone. As long as you're doing something that feels right at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a good point to come back to, just stepping out of your comfort zone. So maybe you tie that to personal growth, which I think a lot of INFJs are really into as well. And and I think that, again, just finding something you're interested in, a mutual interest that you can connect over, is a great way to meet someone, because it allows you to get past the small talk quickly, which I know most INFJs dislike. It's necessary and important,
Yeah.
but if you can get through that pretty quickly, it makes it a lot easier to connect with someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying, like, it's great to do the special interest groups and stuff like that, because it's really easy to get over small talk if you're the other person is also interested in, insert whatever you're interested in, you can just start talking about that, and that's a lot easier.
It's funny, like even just thinking about meeting you here, Megan, today and having this conversation, that's been my experience. Like when we were first talking, it was fine, but once we got into the content, it was much easier to have a natural conversation because this is stuff that I'm interested in, and I feel like it's easy to connect over that. So where can a listener grab a copy of your book? Because I had the chance to read it this weekend, really enjoyed it, and I think that they would find it beneficial.
Yeah, so you can go to www.infjblog.com. There's an INFJs in Love button in the top navigation menu, so click that, and it'll take you right to the shopping page to purchase the book. Right now it's on sale for $4.99. I think I'm extended the sale through the end of October, so if anybody wants to buy it for that price, it's going to be available. And also something I haven't officially announced to everyone yet, so if you're watching/listening to this, you will be one of the first to hear probably, but I am going to expand. I'm going to do a version 2, and I'm going to expand on each of the personality pairing chapters just a little bit more. Some of the feedback I have gotten has said, I'd love to read even more into this. And so that's something that's in the works for next year, 2018, hopefully early 2018. And once I release that, anyone who buys a copy of the current ebook will automatically get the free version of the updated ebook once it's available. So just, if you're interested in getting an even more extensive version, just know that that will be coming if you do purchase this book, or you can wait and purchase the version 2 when it's available.
And you've been doing some great work over at the INFJ blog. So along with that, how can they find out more about you, Megan?
Yeah, well, you can go to infjblog.com if you want to read anything about INFJs, introverts, INFJ relationships, MBTI, cognitive functions, all that stuff I've talked about on my INFJ blog. If you have questions about INFJ or MBTI related stuff, or just want to connect with me, I have a Twitter account called Megan, MEGAN, MBTI. That's the main one that I use to talk about stuff related to the blog. I also have my INFJ account, but the Megan MBTI one's a little bit more personal, so you can reach me there.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today. It was great connecting with you, and I really appreciate the insights and experience that you shared with me and with the listener today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was fun.
Thank you so much for watching this video today. I hope that you found it helpful. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, make sure that you do that. I publish new videos each week to help INFJs just like you. And finally, if you haven't grabbed my free INFJ personality guide, make sure that you grab a copy right now. Text the letters INFJ to the number 444999, or visit the link in the description below and you can grab a free copy right now. See you next time.